Okay, so we are here to start one more seminar, one more change of knowledge. On behalf of Professor Beatriz Lúcia Salvador Bisotto and his team, we say greetings to everybody. It is a pleasure to be here. And the issue today is abuse, child abuse. It is a very complex discussion, a very complex treat to that. In advance, I would like to say that Professora Rejane Bergamaschi is here with us, but no voice. She is aphonic. So we have a test of her that I will read opportunely. First, I would like to invite just a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am back.
Everybody here is enlightening the event. My name is Arceloni Neuza Volpato. I work at Unifavest at the Master in Transcultural Practice. I also am the head of internationalization of the childhood. I am graduated in humanities and a long history and on. I think it is enough. First of all, I would like to introduce the first speaker to present, to deliver his talk, Dr. Hussein Omid from Iran.
Recording in progress.
Dr. Hussein Omid is an elementary school teacher, English language and literature teacher instructor at Guidance School, high school institutions and universities, consultant of the head of the Island Province Education Organization, member of the Applied Science and Technology University, Arabic language and literature instructor at high school and institutions in general, English translator, Arabic translator, Persian language and literature high school teacher, member of the Iranian Teachers Assembly, theology, educational science teacher, Quran teacher, instructor, translator, interpreter, reciter, member of the High Council of Quran, physical education teacher, black belt in Taekwondo, field protection, repatriation clerk in the United Nations, High Commissioner for Refugees, a member for the editorial board of The Voice, an international research referred journal, a member of the editorial board Shot Ditched, an international research journal, educational planning expert in the Ministry of Education at Iran, university professor, BA, BS, MA, level, member of the Iranian National, and so on. Please, Dr.
Hussein Omidi.
Dr. Hussein Omidi, yes, that's it. Thank you. Dr. Hussein Omidi, please deliver our lecture to us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the merciful. First of all, I'd like to tell everybody that I'm very happy to be among you. This is the first point. And the second point is that I'm very happy that I'm here. So thanks a lot. Undying Wounds of Child Abuse is actually one of my papers I just produced maybe a month ago, which was, I like the topic, so I'd like to talk about it. So as I did not know that I have, let's say some of my friends will be speakers as well, so I managed to have something like more time, but it seems today that I have limitations in this regard. So I'd like you to first excuse me if I just could not control let's say the lecture in general, but let me tell you that every child has the right to an open life free from violence. Each year, though millions of children around the world are victims and witnesses of physical, sexual, and emotional violence, as a matter of truth, child maltreatment is a huge global problem with a serious impact on the victim's physical and mental health, well-being, and development throughout their lives, and by extension, on society in general. Child abuse and neglect are a serious global problem. It is a worldwide problem with no social, ethnic, or racial bounds. Let's say only in the US, every year more than 3.5 million reports of child abuse are made. These are only the incidents that are reported. So many are left unreported. Everybody knows that because of some, let's say, reasons. Unnoticed, and the children suffer without any possibility of relief and justice. The reports of child abuse and neglect ironically resemble a story written for millions of children at the mercy of those who should care for them and show them love. In order to understand the severity and complexity of this social problem, we must delve into the realms of the human psyche and the determinants of this chronic illness in society. This is very important. So it is evident that there is an element that prevails all cultures around the world, communities and nationalities, so pervasive that this horrendous criminal phenomenon, child abuse and neglect, knows no borders. It seems that all over the world we have this problem without any, let's say, restriction. We must explore not only the human element, but the spiritual elements of societal corruption to understand the source of these unspeakable crimes against the most defenseless in our societies, our very own children. We must start with what forms, let's say, of child abuse are prevalent in the world that undermines the meaning of humanity and human values. So let me give you some, let's say, definitions first, then we'll move to the next part. The terms child abuse and child maltreatment are repeatedly used interchangeably, but some investigators make a difference between them, treating child maltreatment as an umbrella term to cover neglect, exploitation, and trafficking. Abuse refers to acts of commission, while neglect refers to acts of omission. Child maltreatment includes both acts of commission and acts of omission on the part of parents or caregivers that cause actual physical, emotional, and spiritual harm to a child. So according to the WHO, child abuse and child maltreatment has all forms of, let's say, physical and or emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, neglect or negligent treatment, or commercial or other exploitation, resulting in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, development, or dignity in the context of a relationship of responsibility, trust, or power. So again, according to WHO, approximations of the rates of child abuse and child maltreatment fluctuate extensively by country, subject to how they are demarcated, the type of abuse and maltreatment examined, the scope and the quality of data gathered, and of surveys that ask for self-reports from victims, parents, caregivers. While the numbers and statistics are easy to formulate and even grasp, there is an underlying quest that punctures the very soul of mankind. Describing cruelty against another is a simple yet appalling matter. It is a reality of human existence and of life is routinely accepted as normal. Friends, that is where the real problem lies. We have been indoctrinated and the sensitized to the actual evil that this problem demarcates in human society. So, in general, those wicked ones have not been vanished yet. I'm talking about the, let's say, devil inside human beings. And the point is that we are the only creature in the world that harming others in the way we do. We are harming people who are among us, like us, and being born by us. So this is one major, let's say, thing that it's really just restricted to human being in general. So there are several forms of child maltreatment comprising physical, sexual, psychological, and emotional abuse, as well as neglect. Physical abuse as a child of a child is when a parent or caregiver causes any non-accidental physical injury to a child. Some signs of physical abuse are striking, kicking, burning, biting, and so on. So it is worth mentioning that all kinds of child abuse and neglect leave the affected child with enduring wounds that are physical or psychological, but they are the emotional wounds that leave the child with permanent effects, damage to the child's sense of self, the ability to child healthy connections and function at home, work, or school. So the fight against child abuse must encompass the fight against evil and dark entities and forces among mankind on earth, because I myself like to talk about spirituality more than anything else in my research always. And whatever I write is mostly about the spiritual, let's say, education. Because of what is happening in this world nowadays and the lack that I feel, especially after the pandemic, we know that spirituality is much more important than many other aspects of life. That's why when I write something or talk, I just don't neglect this part, this.
I think he's fell down. He's not.
Okay, I thought it was me.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I will
Okay.
present. I will present the next one, and as soon as possible, Dr.
Yeah,
Hussein Omid, continue.
yes, thank you so much. This is the, so I don't know, I don't know where I was in general. So because I was just speaking and I did not notice that I am not here.
Okay, no problem. Go on.
Okay,
Your internet had a problem. We'll wait some minutes, but you are back
so
just now.
yes.
No? Dr.
Okay,
Omid,
thank you so much.
could you go on?
Shall I continue?
Yes, please.
The child is, as I was telling you, the child is left with a physically battered body and a mentally disorientated psyche that no longer functions as it should. And this is a let's say, disastrous impact of child abuse in general. And as I was telling you that spirituality plays a major role in healing in general, later I will talk about it specifically. This is the price the sacrifice calls for. In fact, a child's soul is stolen to satisfy the hunger of the power-thirsty entity behind the actual perpetrators. A parent must be under the influence of such a beastly entity to inflict such cruelty upon his or her own child. Others, such as child molesters and child slave traffickers, are also injected with the poison of the evil entities promoting such inhumane acts. So the exposure by the child traumatized by such violence during childhood can increase vulnerability of that child to mental and physical health problems like anxiety disorder and depression in general, and even make victims more likely to become perpetrators themselves of violence later in life. That one aspect of the results of child abuse at such gross levels of humanity are proof that there are greater forces at work behind this seemingly apparent human weaknesses. The worst evil is one that can promote its cruel designs in the most innocent souls. The fight against abuse must encompass the fight against evil and dark entities and forces among mankind on earth. That is why Allah, God, sent his messengers, peace be upon them all, from Jesus to Moses to all the, let's say, the wonderful messengers of God, peace be upon them all, to warn mankind to the evil designs and consequences of mankind under these wicked influences. So in general, most often, emotional abuse, which was one of the abuses, let's say, which is one of the most, let's say, impacts of, let's say, or the outcomes of abuse in general, is a pattern of behavior that causes damage over time. Psychological emotional abuse can include rejecting or ignoring child's feelings, breaking promises, cutting child off in conversations, shaming or humiliating, calling a child names, criticizing, belittling, demeaning, and so on. So in general, let's move to the next part. Some signs of emotional abuse in a child are physical, such as delays in development, wetting bed and pants, speech disorders, health problems like, let's say, ulcers, skin disorders, obesity and weight fluctuation, and behavioral such as habits like sucking, biting, walking, learning disabilities, and developmental delays, let's say violence, cruelty, and so on. And let's say regarding physical abuse, there are some signs. These signs are in a child can be physical, such as an injury to a child, that can include visible and severe injuries, injuries at different stages of healing, on different surfaces of the body, explained or unexplained visible signs that do not make sense in general. Signs of abuse can include distinctive shape, frequency, timing, and history of injuries, and behavioral aggression towards peers, pets, and other animals. And we don't forget that one of the most pervasive and damaging abuse to a child is that of perversion and sexual abuse. And I will not continue that much because it will take a long time, because later I will move to, let's say, much more important aspects of child abuse and, let's say, methods of healing them in general. So I will give you some other examples because these information in general, this information is general. So let me, let's say, focus on the sexual perversion. One of the most pervasive and damaging abuse to a child is that of perversion and sexual abuse. And by the way, I myself have, let's say, a good research on 4 novels, 21st century novels by American novelists, and which are those 4, let's say, novels are mostly having protagonists who are abused sexually by sick people, to, let's say, to make sure that people are familiar with such kind of literature first, and secondly, to let people to feel and even to shed tears when they read such kind of stories and think more about the bestiality behind the perpetrators and the abusers of such innocent creatures of Allah. Sexual perversion entails the most corrupting effect to a child's mind and spirit. Unfortunately, one of the most damaging abuses. They may overcome the physical scars and fears as they grow older, but they can never escape the horrors and dehumanizing effects of sexual abuse by those who impose their strength and power over a child to satisfy their animalistic tendencies. Sexual abuse is perhaps the most defining or defiling to an innocent child's soul and spirit. The union of two souls is a divine arrangement permitted only under Allah's God's consent. So why to violate it? When we are spirits and kids are the most innocent spirits and they come from God, why to abuse such beautiful creatures? This crime is not only an ignoble act, but a sin against the very basic human elements that God provided humans with. A sin against oneself, against others, and against God himself. The one act that was divinely administered by Allah for the procreation of humanity, used as a self-degrading and perverse assault on innocent children is an abomination. Let's say abomination, sorry. Actually, sexual abuse occurs when an adult uses a child for sexual purposes or involves a child in sexual acts. Sorry. It also includes when a child who is older or more powerful uses another child for sexual gratification or excitement. Sexual abuse of children includes non-contact abuse, making a child's view a sex act, making a child view a show sex organs, inappropriate sexual talk, contact abuse, fondling and oral sex, penetration, making children perform a sex act, exploitation, child prostitution, and child pornography. Sorry. So anyway, we are reasonable adults. And we, as reasonable adults, must know that. We are constantly aware of the signs emanating from children suffering this torture. You must also be ready to confront the perpetrator and deliver him or her to the authorities for punishment. We must be willing to step in to defend a child without wavering. Sometimes we are the only defense they have. Don't forget that, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes we are the only defense they have. We would be guilty of propagating such horrors if we hold back for fear of consequences. We might even save a child from this agonizing reality. So there are some signs, so I will not mention them because of the shortage of time. We'll move to another part, which is nurture versus nature versus a nurture debate. The propositions put forward by these studies only console the basic human condition as a basic physical entity without accessing the condition of underlying truths, such as the human spirit and its creation in the essence of God. Some believe that we are human beings and we have the spirit which comes from above. Some don't believe in that. I am addressing the people who believe that, because I myself, I do believe that we came from above and our spirit is holy, and we have a mom and a dad, Adam and Eve, and I do follow Abrahamic religion. Okay, so it focuses on a human body without a spirit or a true soul. The heart is the seat of all truth and emotion. Therefore, a defiled heart will demand acts that violate God's will and goodness for humanity. We cannot judge a human heart, but if not for the actions of the being. Actions talk. We don't know what's going on inside our hearts, but the actions show who we are. Actions speak louder than words and are or should be dealt with without negation or excuses. God's will is not limited to human reasoning in these matters. Regarding the child's sexual abuser's motives for committing such crimes against a child, it is good to know that the nature versus nurture debate raises philosophical questions about determinism and free will. It debates the common description of the controversy of the relative importance of heredity, nature, and environment, nurture, in the causation of human behavior. So some people believe that human behavior has to be explained by both nature and nurture. Some others believe that the understanding of man's psyche must be based on the analysis of man's needs stemming from the conditions of his existence and the most powerful psychic forces motivating man's behavior stem from the conditions of his existence, the human situation. So some other like epigenetics, or let's say scientists in this let's say field, believe that they reveal that what counts is not what genes you have so much as what your genes are doing. So what our genes are is not important, because especially we are living in a kind of a not stable environment in general, and the environment is moving every day. Something is happening, maybe every moment, every second, every minute, something is happening. The world is changing, so our genes are changing. Their behavior changing based on, let's say, the environment in general. So we cannot stay back and just repeat the same story of what nurture or nature. No. So the epigenet, they reveal that what counts is not what genes you have so much as what your genes are doing. It merely stating that what your genes are doing is influenced by the ever-changing environment they are in. Factors like stress, nutrition, and exposure to toxins all play a role in how genes are expressed. Epigenetics research demonstrates how genetic and environmental elements continuously interact to produce characteristics throughout a lifetime. In point of fact, it's not true that genes do things independently of their context. Instead, genes do what they do because of the context that they are in, namely their environment. So as proven and seen by these human studies, wicked behavior is reduced to the human element with no consideration for the human spirit, which was given mankind, let's say, made in God's image. Again, once more, I put emphasis on the presence of the Spirit and the Holy Spirit and God Himself in our bodies and souls. So it must not be like neglected as the, let's say, scientists of epigenetics are learned to do. So anyway, it is an atrocity to reduce the human element to such base constructs. Unless mankind can accept its divine nature, these sins and atrocities will continue rampant in all the world. Who will step up to the challenge? We need to find some people who really, let's say, find a solution to that. We all have the obligation to resist this evil destroying, let's say, evil destroying so many. If we are really, we do believe that we are God's children in general. So the study of child abuse is limited to the concepts of humans as simply as higher form of animal with actions resulting from very basic elements of nature versus nurture. It has been proven that even a child raised by the most loving parents in a most suitable and nurturing environment can grow up to become a corrupt person committing horrendous crimes. So what is the reason for this? We must delve deeper into the human condition to answer those questions. This is where the reasoning of God becomes mandatory, that we may not be deceived. So no one can deny the importance of Sigmund Freud and his influence on the study of literature in general, because I hold a PhD in English language and literature, and mostly I do work on literature. So even my PhD, my MA, and 24, 25 of my articles, which are published, let's say a few years ago, are based on psychological studies in general in literature and poetry, especially, let's say, war poetry. So I like Freud in general and the psychologists who are working on literature. So I think that Freud's impact is enormously huge, as great writers have mentioned their debt to him. His psychoanalytical method of interpretation or interpretation proposes to the reader lively sense of its latent and ambiguous meaning, as it was and as indeed it is, a being no less alive and contradictory than the man who created it. So let's say concerning child abuse in literature in general, I myself was studied for, as I told you in my introduction, for a novel, 21st century novels. The first one is Little Chicago by Adam Grant, Stephen Ellis' Happy Baby, 2004, and the previous one was produced in 2002. Sold, 2006, by Patricia McCormick, and Elizabeth Scott's Living Dead Girl, 2008. It seems that these stories may help to have a better understanding of, let's say, the theoretical aspects of the child abuse in general. So I'd like you, if you want and you're interested, to read these, let's say, novels, to be more familiar with, let's say, the psychology of the, let's say, the children who are abused, the protagonist, and the, let's say, the perpetrators, the bad characters in those novels, to see what is going on in their minds and to enjoy it, because the reading of literature is mostly to have pleasure, delight, and instruction, understanding in general. So as I was telling you, reading critical reviews and critical analysis of other scholars can help us to have a better understanding of, let's say, these stories. So I will not talk more about the, let's say, the literature part, because I think that religion in general can help us profoundly, let's say, to adjust ourselves to a better, let's say, understanding of what is going on in humanity and in the mind of perpetrators, and even can gives us, let's say, ways and let's say methods to heal from that if we or people around us been abused. So in general, Islam talks about children in general, and I just want you to share with you some information about what Islam thinks about children in general.
Excuse me,
Islam.
Dr. Omid, please, 1 minute more, please. Please, 1 minute more to finish your presentation.
Okay, so
yeah, and then we have the panelists to make considers. We start talking, but the presentation should finish in 1 minute.
okay, so 1 minute.
Thank you.
So finally, I insist that child protection is a duty to all, and more so a concern for other social scientists who contribute to the understanding of the concepts and strategies of child protection, and the responsibility for adults and institutions with roles in ensuring the safety and the human care of children under their care. Child abuse is complex and difficult to study, but perhaps child abuse, the most pronounced evidence of humanity gone astray. It demands our concern and earnest efforts to eliminate the suffering of so many innocent children More importantly, it should open our eyes to the true nature of humanity in the time where God is absent from lives of the majority. Let us shine our light not only on the tragedy of child abuse, but also on the tragedy of losing our path as children of God and of the light. Let our light shine in our hearts that it may illuminate those who suffer. Throughout Islamic history and in its literature, the rights and responsibilities concerning kids are obvious. Parents, families, as well as communities have certain responsibilities towards kids. Most of those responsibilities are compulsory. This is very important. There is no doubt on the doomsday, Allah will question adults about the treatment of their brutes. Allah has provided all we need. It is within our true, I just four lines, sorry. It is within our true nature to step up and answer the call to save the children in the world or of the world. Let's we lose ourselves. As a nation destined to suffer the consequences of Western ideologies and rampant immorality and debased culture, the distorted trend of sadomasochistic spiritual rituals of discipline have become a daily trend of, let's say, okay, God is
Dr. Hamid,
okay,
thank you. We have to start. We have a programmation. If we do not follow the program, we do not pay attention to the all possibilities. You have a so special speech emphasizing the multiculturalism, emphasizing the emotional, religious, social, and many multicultural aspects of the childhood abuse. You emphasize that spirituality is so important. And so many, I would consider so much, but my time is also so short now. So I ask to Dr. Hania Lampu from Gracia, make 5 minutes of considerations about your talk. Please, Dr. Hania, I will present all curriculums at the end, not to cut the talk about childhood abuse.
Okay, so greetings from Greece to all. I'm very, very honored to be here today. This is a very significant topic. Dr. Hossein has presented in depth, I think the topic. He has covered many aspects of this issue. And we need to focus on also child labor, which has all these aspects that he has already mentioned, the worst forms that is slavery, or trafficking or any other illicit activities. We also think that we should focus on other target groups such as migrant, displaced children, because migrant children are among the most vulnerable populations of the globe this time, but they have more possibilities to get abused, and also children with disabilities. And something very important is what happens, what are the impacts of the pandemic on this? How socioeconomic pressures and lockdowns had increased to violence and domestic violence, especially against children, including all these physical, sexual, emotional aspects, and how this exacerbated stress, tension, and increase, as I said before, exploitation, children exploitation. Especially here in Greece, we have many cases during lockdown. Many children are not safe to learn at home. And of course, these children have fewer opportunities to seek support or access to services because they lack accurate information about this. So we're talking also, this is related to gender-based violence, which was increased during the COVID pandemic. And personally, I want to say that I have been a victim of serious abuse 2 times in my life, at the age of 4 and 17 years old. And regarding my first experience, it was something that was deleted completely from my memory. I managed to remember it under certain circumstances, you know, unconsciously. Of course, that this affected my behavior, which was sometimes dysfunctional until the age of 17 years old. It seriously influenced my relations, and I never revealed to my parents, and Unfortunately, my parents never noticed this. I'm saying this because it's important for parents to see the symptoms. Children who usually feel who are abused, they may feel guilty or ashamed or confused. And there are also signs that we need, if we're parents, to see beyond, to see changes of their behavior, such as aggression or depression or frequent absences from school, to see any strange social withdrawal or any desperate need for help. Of course, what Dr. Hossein said is what is the most important consequence is that the child who is abused is more likely to abuse others as an adult. So this violence is passed down from one generation to the next. So it's important, it's critical to break this cycle of violence. And this has also, this maltreatment causes stress, which is associated with disruption in early brain development, because extreme stress can impair the development of nervous and immune system. And consequently, as adults, maltreated children are at increased risk for behavioral, physical, and mental health. And these children are more possibilities to smoke, to have problems of obesity, to high risk sexual behaviors, alcohol, substance of alcohol, and drug misuses. And of course, all these consequences, all these problems can contribute to health diseases, heart cancer, suicides, etc. Of course, there are, we need to mention that there are several risk factors. For instance, children who are usually unwanted, or children who fail to fulfill the expectation of parents, or they have special needs, or they have special disabilities, are more likely to be mistreated. What about parents? Parents usually not nurture the children, or they have been mistreated themselves, or they have low self-esteem, etc. All these signs that the risk factors that increase the likelihood. And of course, relationship, we're talking about usually divorced families, isolated families, or communities with gender and social inequality in general. So I think that here the key word is prevention. Preventing child mistreatment is before it starts possibly, and requires a multi-sectoral approach, because effective prevention approaches, including supporting parents and teaching positive parenting skills, enhancing laws, of course, to prohibit violent punishment. And this includes information skill building sessions to support the development of nurturing and non-violent parenting delivered by experts. And of course, increased quality education to allow children to acquire knowledge skills that build resilience and reduce risk factors for violence. Programs to prevent sexual abuse, interventions to build a positive school climate and violence-free environment. Laws, as I said before, laws to prohibit violent punishment, protect the children from sexual abuse. So what we can do if we are parents, for instance, parents should get involved with other parents and community, should be volunteer their time, help vulnerable children and their families, reach out in their neighborhood. They can discipline their children thoughtfully. For instance, they can never discipline their child when they are upset. They should also examine their behavior, because abuse is not physical. Both words and actions can leave deep and lasting wounds. So they need to be a nurturing parent. Educate themselves and others, know what abuse is and what is not. Follow after-school activities, education classes, mentoring programs. Teach children about their rights. When children are taught that they have the right to be safe, they're less likely to think abuse is their fault, and they're more likely to report an offender. Support prevention programs and learn how to see the signs, as I said before. So investing in kids is very important. Encourage all these people in the community to be supportive for children and families. Try to understand your children, keep your children healthy, offer our children love and prevention, attention. I forgot to say that it's important to teach also children how to stay safe online, because cyber crimes, cyber bullying, and all this is very, very, very important, especially during the COVID pandemic. We have many, many cases of this. About the treatment, we can see that this treatment usually has 4 steps. How we need to define first the problem, identify the causes, design interventions, and disseminate information. This could have medical care, but the most important is psychotherapy. Why? Because talking with a mental health professional, this can help a child who has been abused to learn to trust again. Teaches child about normal behavior and relationships, because I said before, children usually adopt after being abused these abnormal behaviors and dysfunctional. Teach children conflict management and boost self-esteem. And there, in these cases, 2 kinds of therapies are used: trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which actually helps children to manage distressing feelings and to deal with trauma-related memories, and child-parent psychotherapy, which actually involves children too. So we need to, of course, on a micro level, communities should evaluate the effectiveness of policies, of laws and programs designed to prevent and respond to child maltreatment. And in more general place, we need to eradicate all this forced labor to modern slavery, human trafficking, and secure prohibition, elimination of worst forms of child abuse, including the use of child soldiers. Thank you very much. Because we didn't mention, but this is a child of abuse. Children who are used in wars is also a kind of abuse. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lampu, what a fantastic presentation. What a fantastic reflection. Thank you. Congratulations. At chat, we are receiving congratulations to your talk. Now, really great. It is your first participation. Now we go on in a few minutes. This is Dr. Rania Lampu from Greece. Rania Lampu is a global educator, STEM instructor, ICT teacher trainer, neuroeducational research, international keynote speaker, author of scientific books from Kids and Global Peace Ambassador in Greece. She has a postgraduate degree in language teaching related to cognitive neuroscience, and she is also a passionate researcher on cognitive neuroscience and neuroeducation. Currently, she is a STEM instructor at the Greek Astronomy and Space Company, Annex of Salamis, and she is also working at the Greek Ministry of Education, at the Director of Educational Technology and Innovation, where she writes STEM's project for Greek schools. She has been awarded many national and international prizes, over 120, and she is Global Teacher Award 2020 and 2021. AKS Awards, winner at the Global Teacher Prize finalist in 2019. Recently, she has been selected Global Icon 2020, featured in Patient Vista magazine. Among the 10 top women entrepreneurship featured Fortune and among 100 most successful women in business, featured in the Amazon book by Global Trade Chambers. She also promotes STEM vision by introducing STEM in astronomy and physics projects and combines STEM with language testing. She is the founder and international coordinator of many innovative international projects that focus on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals described in 2030 Agenda at UNESCO. She is also an author of scientific books for kids. Thank you for your first participation, Dr. Lampu.
Thank you very much. I wanted to add something because I forgot to say some shocking facts that nearly 3 in 4 children aged 2 to 4 years old regularly suffer physical punishment or psychological violence, and 1 in 5 women and 1 in 13 men reported having sexually abused a child aged until 17 years old. These are very shocking statistics.
It is shocking. In Brazil, last data we have is before the pandemic, 2019, yeah. And it is registered in this year 1,059 registers at the 100 dial number. But we know that people do not talk. It's a few number. But with this statistic, we have 3-4 kids among 100 kids. It is a large number. Yes, now we go to the second part of this event, and we have the presentation of Dr. Ramesh Chandra Hath from India. He has a doctorate degree on organizational behavior from the Department of Psychology, Patna University. Doctor of Philosophy degree in Business Administration from Faculty of Management Studies, Birla Institute of Technology in the year of 2000. Passed Master in Psychology with double specialization of Organization, Behavior, and Advanced Psychology from Department of Psychology, Gangadhara Mehra College, Autonomous. Passed Master on Business Administration with the specialization of Marketing Managing. Passed +3 graduation degree in Psychology from Navagar College, Navagar affiliated to Utkal University, Vanivihar Bhubaneswar, Odisha in 1994 with securing first-class honors. Passed 2+ degree from Navagar College, Navagar affiliated to CHSI Bhubaneswar in Odisha. She passed the high school certificate. Dr. Ramesh has a very huge curriculum. Dr. Ramesh, please, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Professor Dr. Astroli, for your brilliant recognitions. I honor to Professor Beatrice, Professor Dr. Hussain, Professor Dr. Mahmood, all invited delegates, research scholars throughout the globe. My presentation, this is my presentation. I am keynote speaker, not my presentation, because I am a keynote speaker in international report, so that I am sharing my PPT without delay, because you are assigned me few seconds, that is a few minutes, or 10 minutes. So within the stipulated time, I'm going to share my PPT. Am I audible? PPT is visible, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, yes.
PPT is visible, yes or no?
No, it's okay. So nice.
Yeah, PPT. I think PPT not visible. Yeah.
Go on, it's okay.
Once again, I am sharing PPT, okay? Host disable, please disable, this is PPT. Please allow me for sharing my PPT. Host disable participants, screen sharing. Please allow hosts for sharing my PPT. Please allow me for sharing my PPT.
Beatriz, precisas permitir que ele passe o PPT dele, os slides.
Please allow me. I'm sharing. I'm unable to share PPT.
Yeah. Beatriz?
Só um pouquinho, eu já tinha dado a permissão para ele. Ok.
It's okay,
Yeah.
Dr.
Now it's okay. Now it's okay. Okay, now it's okay. Yeah. Now it's okay. Yes, please. Okay.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. It started, but
Yes.
not here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Once again, welcome to all the participants, delegates, research scholars throughout the globe. Thank you, University of Brazil, for giving me nice opportunity for sharing my experience and skills. My topic is Undying Violence of Child Abuse in India, Emerging Issues and Challenges. My previous speaker, Dr. Hussain, brilliantly analyzes all things. So I am thankful to Dr. Hossein for a brilliant analysis, and I have got many things from your lecture keynote sessions. Without delay, going to share. This is the outlines, abstract, introduction, what is child abuse and why child abuse, stages of child abuse, prevention of child abuse in India, Child Protection Act, POCSO in India, role of a central state government, NGO, social organization for protection of child abuse, and finally conclusion. So the child abuse in India, child abuse is a heinous social crime who neglect, exploit, uses or moral trafficking, blackmailing, sexual harassing, or forced to work physically to child by a person or an adult. In India, so many heinous activities, the child abuse, harm to show neglect of a child by another person, whether adult or child. Anyone that neglect child, sexual harassing, exploit or neglect, it is heinous activities in India. In child abuse happens in all cultural, ethnic, and all income groups, not only socioeconomic groups, not only below poverty groups, but also most of people have this is those are negative minded, these peoples are exploit the child. So child abuse can be physical, can be emotional, can be psychological, can be verbal, sexual, or through neglect, any means, any way that is treated as that is child abuse. In the introduction, child abuse is one of the most important time that is human life, because the child is the future, child is the future of the nation, future of the country. So that in human life, there is a child abuse most development periods, that is the most crucial period. It is during the childhood that most of the foundations of one's personality as developed. So experiences and relationship throughout the child shape how children will ultimately relate with the others. That is depends upon the perceive themselves of experience, going to become the internalized such that they affect a person's daily life experiences. The most devastating, the child remains as significant, long-term, and often lifelong consequences in child sexual, either physically or mental abuse that are treated as child abuse in India throughout the globe. So in child abuse, so for the child abuse concern is nothing but it is defined as a harming, any type of harming, maybe physically, maybe emotionally, maybe psychologically, maybe sexually, harassment that is treated as child abuse. Again, child abuse may be treated as an illegal treatment, abuse, neglect, deprivation of child. Some protection issues tends to go to detections. There is neglect, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, which can be just damaging not only the part of the body, also the part of the brain, also mentally. It is physical abuse, physical damage, that is called as physical abuse. Mental abuse or psychological harassment, that is called as mental abuse. So in the types of child abuse, so for the child abuse is concerned, there are various types of child abuse, such as physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, many ways child is abused, child is harassed by the adults, by the negativity peoples. Those are antisocial people, miscreants, they have exploited child. So child abuse is a cyclical nature. By cyclical nature, that means upon runs a cycle. If once abuse, the mentality of the concerned person abuse again and again and again. So that it is strong action should be taken against that miscreants, that person, not to abuse child at any costs. So let us come to discuss the physical abuse. So for the physical abuse is concerned, it is any physical attack, repeated, occurring just once, not just once. This is more and more and more. Many times this is abused by the miscreants, by the adults, those are negative people, antisocial persons, those are sexually intent people, abuse the children, that is called as physical abuse. Any physical harm caused by lack of care. Is it true? Lack of care, so many physical abuse are done nowadays. That's a neglect. Neglect the main cause. If you are failing to provide the adequate food, shelter, safety, medical, psychological treatment, supervision, clothing, those are the poverty. Poor countries child has more abuse, neglected abuse than of the developed countries. So in India is a developing country. India, most of people of this is below poverty. They have abuse. There is a sexual harassment, mental harassment, and neglected by the society, by the hierarchy, by the socio-economic standards. Those are people, they have abused the children. So in physical abuse, the physical abuse of disease, bruises, isolation, the abrasions, skeletal injuries, head injuries, like this type of hitting, backup, sucking, twisting, pulling, punching, beating with hand and objects, beating force, feedings, and other kicking, burns from the cigarettes, hot liquids, confinement, ropes, irons, like this way, there is physical abuse, there is abuse by the miscreants, by the adults, those are this is antisocial persons in the society. So that this is type of physical abuse, not a this is not entertained in any developed countries or civilized countries. So emotional abuse, besides that, mental abuse or emotional abuse, constant yelling, demeaning remarks, being rejected, ignored, threats, verbal attacks, exposure, scolding, that is domestic violence, that also belongs to emotional abuse or mental abuse by the miscreants, by the adults, by the person. Those are antisocial, those are intended to this type of activities, heinous activities. Again, emotional activities otherwise known as psychological activities, because everyone have this personality. That's emotions abusive child, that's psyche and self-concept of victim, which consequences of this seem to him herself as unworthy, love and affection. Children who are constantly shamed by emotionally humiliated, terrorized or rejected suffer least as much. They have this is emotional abuse. Any person, any child, any small child, small girl or boy, that's emotional torture, psychological torture by anyone, any person, adult, that treated as emotionally abused. There is emotional abuse, their mental not developed. They belong to this is mental retarded, below IQ, they have this is idiots, they became this mental retarded, their development not possible if they are emotional abused. What is CSA? Sexual harassment of this is in child abuse. There is a World Health Organization who define that CSA. There is a child of this is sexually abused as the involvement. There is the involvement of child sexually activity that he or she does not fully comprehensive, is unable to give informed consent, to for which the child is not fully developmentally prepared and cannot be consent, and that violate leaves the social taboos of society. Because it is a heinous activities, those are sexually abused by the sexually abused to the children or child, it may be boy, it may be girl. Again, child sexual abuse is evidence that by these activities between child, in the age of a child, not only have this is 4 to 6 years, this is more, even the grown-up girls below this is below 14, below 13, below 16, they are also abused by mental abuse, sexual abuse, sexual harassed by the miscreants. Those are negative people in society, either person or young man or this adult, they have intentionally do this type of activities repeatedly by harassing the child who is sexually abused. So responsibility, trust and power, there is a relationship develop. If relationship develop in the society, then sexual abuse may be obvious, may be obsolescence. In the sexual abuse, the invitation of sexual touching, being touched sexually, exposed genitals, exposing pornographically, that is already discussed by the Professor Dr. Hussain. So here sexual abuse, this type of sexual abuse, child abuse, any sexual act with a child performed by an adult is old. Because in the adult of this age, today's child is tomorrow's the adult, many adults. The double are associated. So many types, many ways there is a miscreants or abuse them. That is detect them. They have a this touching the body parts, different private parts, and have this videography, pornographic, anything, dirty picturing, many way may be neglected by the this is neglected by the society. So that child abuse or sexual abuse more and more, of course, in nowadays in society. This is indices of child abuse. As the survey of United Nations, that's UNICEF, United Nations International Children Education Fund, UNICEF, that's demographic health was conducted in India 2005 to 2013. 10% of India girls might have experienced sexual violence. Whereas in Muslim countries, other countries, India is a cultural countries, India is abused less. But in other countries, Muslim countries, this is less child abuse because there are strong adaptations. Due to strong adaptation, strong law in Muslim countries, Iraq, Iran, like this, the many countries, their abusement, sexual harassment is very less. But in comparison, India is so increased because India is a democratic country. So my research study experiences sexual violence when they have aware, of course, in 10 to 14 years, age is more, that is 42%. In Indian girls have gone through the trauma of sexual violence before their 10 years. So in the teenage periods in India, most of sexual harassment occurs in comparison to other developed countries. Particularly the Muslim countries, I praise to Muslim countries because Muslim countries are adaptations, particularly South Arabia, USA, that is Dubai, like this so on. Muslim countries, there are strong adaptation, strong action against this rapist, against this child abuse persons. There is a sexual abuse is very less. What makes child abuse? Once in a child, if they have children, teenager who are sexually curious or experimenting, so many people have experienced child that's curious because in teenage they have interest. So whatever may be, this is not right to abuse them. They have medical, mental problems that needs treatment. If these children this age after this harassment, after abuse, they need to be physical treatment, medical treatment, mental treatment, psychological treatment, so that they're because they have a mental problem. If their mental treatment, psychological not have this treatment properly by the psychologist, they have become the mental retardates. There are opportunities who lack of feelings or other person for others who are antisocial personality or disorders. Those have those persons have this type of activities, they have influence, they have this is interested, they are antisocial persons. They have opportunities, they got the chance. If they have got the chance, they have a go for this type of heinous activities. So that they are in this situation, they have an ongoing sex drive detected towards the children. So the child abuse at any cost not entertained at any civilized society. The types of child abuse. The types of child abuse, there are many types of child abuse in like child sexual abuse includes touching behaviors and non-touching behaviors. There are two types of abuse: sexual abuse, the child sexual abuse, touching behavior, as well as this is non-touching behaviors. So in touching behavior, there is a funding of child body sexual pleasure. For getting the sexual pleasure, if you touch the body of the child, that is the heinous activity, that also crime. Again, there is a kissing, a child with sexual undertones. If you undertones of this is kissing, let's say kissing or have this hugging, that's a hug to the child, this is also heinous activity, is a crime in India. Rubbing genitals against the child's body, touching the private parts, and making child touch someone else's genitals, inserting objects of body parts inside of this the private parts, mouth, anus of a child, like this so on. This is also belongs to called as a touching behavior of this is sexual abuse. Then go non-touching behaviors, encouraging child to watch, that is you hear sexual acts, watching a child in a state of a nudity. If nudity, this is nude, the nude position, if it's pornography or photography or state of watching, this is also heinous act in the child abuse. And adult making suggestive comments to the child that are sexual in nature, exposing private parts of the body, that is a child abuse, not entertained at any cost. Encouraging.
Dr. Hamesh, excuse me.
Yeah, ma'am, please.
Please,
Yeah.
1 minute to conclude your deliver.
Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. This is grooming processes like this one. These are grooming process of child abuse. So the hierarchical models of child abuse, that is this is target of a victim, graining tossed, filling the needs, isolation. This is most of the child abuse occurs in a society nowadays. This is indicators of child abuse sexual. There are two types of indicators, the physical indicators and mental indicators like this one. The physical indicators like this, difficulty walking to sitting like this so on. This is by behavioral indicators like this. There is a depression, regression, social withdrawal, developing fear, phobias, anxiety when child is abused physically, mentally, psychologically. Then go for the effects of child sexual abuse. This is discourse of others themselves, anxiety develop, shame, guilty, and self-hatred, isolation, depression, anger, drug, alcohol, mental illness, suicide. They have this is committed after this abuse by someone, miscreants. Then go for prevention of child abuse, like this one. Then counsel it properly, but right, tell child that they never trouble. If they tell secrets, if there are parents, that's control. They have this is the counsel by proper counsel with her, by parents, with the mother, with the lady teacher, with the psychologist, and they understand your counsel properly. Which part is touchable, which part is not touchable. So that situation, child abuse may be reduced. No one should you touch someone else the private parts. This is the feelings. This is the understanding of this concerned child. So that child understand that she may not be allowed to others for this child abuse, for touching the private parts of her bodies. like this legal frameworks in India, that's a POSCO Act in 2021 implemented in India. There's a strong act of this against child abuse. These are legal action POSCO 2012 was formulated in order to effectively address sexual abuse, sexual exploitation of children. These are so heinous activities, and in this act, there's a punished, severe punished like this one. So POSCO Act in India stated that is below 18 years, that is below 18 years of age child, if abused by someone, exploited by someone, harassing by someone, then treated as a child abuse. It defines in terms of sexual abuse, including touching, non-touching behavior, assaults as well as sexual harassment, showing the sex videos, images like this one. This is also committed as treated as a child abuse. So that situation, the advisors have these family members take proper care, trust the positions, police, teacher, doctors. They have to take their responsibility. They have to take their responsibility in such a way that the child abuse may not be possible at any costs. Like this punishment of disease, you can say this legal action taken, POSCO Act is 7 years imprisonment. Then maximum punishment of the sexual offense, that is a life prison. That is a life prison in India. If this is a sexual harassment, that is emails, telephones, calls, gestures, it's 3 years of imprisonment according with the fine. If this legal action taken under the Act of POSCO in India. Like this, the neglect of child age, educated food or shelter safety provided not by properly, medical treatment, psychological treatment, supervision, clothing not provided properly, that treated as neglect. So it is also offense in the child abuse. That is neglect is these things how neglected child. You can see the senses. Hunger child have this is hungry. This is a lack of clothes, lack of this is the food. So it may be neglected by someone that is also treated as that is a child abuse. There is a victim profiles like this one, 60% victims neglect, 20% victims are physical abuse, 10% victims are sexual abuse, 7% victims are emotional abuse. This is the psychological data. This is the
Dr. Ramesh, excuse me, please, 30 seconds, final 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, go for this. Yeah. Go for this is the stop of child abuse like this one, child helpline in India. That's a 90 from that's 1098 phone numbers that spells over millions of children across in India. Childline India in first 24 hours free emergency phone service for children neglected need to aid for assistance like this ones. So these are the about my lecture, keynote lecture regarding the child abuse, harassment, child abuse, undying wounds in India, how neglected by the miscreant, by those antisocial persons. In conclusion, the awareness and this is the most powerful weapons against child abuse. If a society awareness, NGOs awareness, parents awareness, teachers awareness, counsel properly, this social evil that ramp out in every class society, every state, city, religions, this is timing modules and different age groups need to be created, which teachers can use of impactness. These are issues children in schools. However, such initiatives need to such support of civil society, education, child welfare, and other institutions to root out these heinous activities, heinous work, child abuse from the society. Thank you all for giving me opportunity for sharing my skill and experiences. Thank you.
Fantastic, Dr. Ramesh. You enlightened, add valuable information to the event, to the talk we are doing and building knowledge on it, aiding that psychological, physical, sexual, mental, in all varieties we could have abuse. And it's a complex and so spread panorama we can have the team. Now I will introduce Dr. Rejane Bergamaschi. Here. She is a psychologist, professor at psychology at Centro Universitário Unifavest, specialist in clinical psychology and psychological assessment, master in environment and health, editor-in-chief of Flor de Maçã Journal, researcher, speaker, executive member of GEL Brazil. Dr. Rejane unhappily could not talk. She has a pharyngitis problem since last Saturday. Is impossible to her to pronounce any words, but she brings us with a valuable Text that I will read. Childhood blues. I would like to apologize for my absence. It is occurring because I have no voice. Anyway, I am able to write about some points that I consider important about the theme. I would like to bring attention about 2 points. First, obviously, it is about the psychological trauma. The child feels shame because he or she doesn't know exactly what happened, but the child knows that something wrong happened because it is said to the child that nobody can know about the fact. Or, in many times, it's said that her or his family will be suffering something terrible if they have the information. Inside it, children will imagine many things because they don't have experience, behaviors, self-support, even adult support for them to face that situation. Children are weakest point in that situation, and time goes by. Abuses increase in frequency, and child's emotional situation becomes more and more compromised, worse and worse, until the an adult realizes the situation. This has happened many times until an adult sees it, because it can happen many times. If an adult doesn't see, and that's where we have the second point that would like to focus on our attention to. Thus, I would like to expand the situation for adult life. Let's consider that the abuse was just in the childhood. Child grew up, became a man or a woman. The person passed by adolescence and became an adult. It is very difficult to say exactly when we are talking about people because we don't have a recipe. People are different, but in some situations we have almost the same behaviors, feelings, emotions, and sensations. Many people that have this experience in their lives, when realize the situation, the way that is affected their life at the moment, probably will be in shock. As a psychologist, Rejane says, I have experiences that some patients, and I can say that always, it is very sad, when they understand what happened in fact, because the child understood that it was a way to be affectionate, and when it discovered a new trauma occurs. Probably, person will feel anger, disgust, and guilty. And these feelings, in my opinion, her opinion, are the worst, and we start a new page in the patient's therapeutic process. I try to bring there a little bit of a big, severe problem of our society that many times, many people can't see actually, but it exists and brings us many emotional traumas, emotional disorders for the subject. And on the other hand, we can say that can be treated with psychotherapy. It is necessary to look to the child that lives inside in the subject, realize in fact what happened, and break some of many beliefs, bringing great self-awareness. Thank you, Professora Rejane Bergamaschi, for your words. Now,
Thank you, ma'am.
and also thanks to Dr. Ramesh. Now we go to the third part of the session. This session, we have Von Eric Tendok, a professional inspirational speaker, educator, facilitator, and Amazon best-selling author. Von Eric is a positive influencer, mentor, and a coach of public speaking, clarity, and confidence building. He started his coaching and mentoring programs called Confident Speaking Institute in 2019 and published his first book, best-selling book titled, Say It Aloud, Say It Proud, last July last year. His work is about the importance of communication, learn the art of public speaking and confidence in presentation. He is a distinguished Toastmaster, the highest distinction in Toastmaster International, combining a sense of responsibility and gentleness and humor. He states his mission clearly. I was born to bring out the best in people by sharing my experience and mechanic and dynamic of confident communication so that the course can realize their dreams. Von Eric Tandok is a licensed teacher and had a background in customer service and marketing in Philippines before moving to Canada last 2008. Now he speaks globally in different platforms, organizations, and schools to share his mission and vision. Please help me welcome Amazon's best-selling author, distinguished Toastmaster Von Eric Tandok. Now that he has the word and will talk to us.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to say thank you to Dr. Aranya and Dr. Beatriz for inviting me here. Thank you very much. And of course, today we have a very, very sensitive topic that we need to address. It's because it's recurring. The two speakers, two doctors from India and Iran, already mentioned the effect of this abuse. And they're right. We need to address this one. Child abuse is any intentional harm or mistreatment to a child under 18 years old. Child abuse takes many forms, which sometimes they are in at the same time. Right? The World Health Organization, or WHO, defines child abuse as any maltreatment, as all forms of physical, emotional exploitation that result in actual or potential harm to the children. Take note that we have 4 main types of child abuse. And what are those 4 main types? Number 1 is neglect. Number 2 is physical. Number 3 is psychological. Number 4, sexual. And what are we going to do to these 4 main types of abuse? We need to stop sexual abuse. And we as a leaders should initiate, help, and guide our children to stop sexual abuse. That's why I'm very grateful to the speakers today, the 2 speakers before me, the panelists, the moderator, the organizers. Thank you for your courage today to organize this event to address sexual abuse. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very sensitive topic, yet always occurring around the world. Abuse is defined as an act of commission and also an act of omission. Child abuse is a very serious problem in many countries. While there is an acute awareness about child abuse, still many children suffer abuse, sometimes even death. In a busy emergency room, healthcare workers sometimes, or maybe most of the time, doesn't recognize the signs and symptoms of abuse, particularly those below 18 years old. Children are actually suffering from a hidden epidemic brought about this sexual abuse, maltreatment, physical, And the most common is the neglect. We should wage a war against this to protect our children. And Dr. Omidi mentioned a while ago, while I'm listening to him, he mentioned that we, the adults, are the one who are aggressor to these children. And very, very important is to take care of the children, because one day in the future, they will become a parent too. And we don't want these children to do the same to their future children and grandchildren. The US, for example, has one of the worst records among industrialized nations, losing 5 children in average every day. Ladies and gentlemen, we must learn to recognize early signs of abuse in order to help save 5 children that die every day from child abuse and neglect. 5 children every day. And that is only in United States. How much more in Greece, in Brazil, in India, in the Philippines, Canada, Georgia? I'm very grateful to you, Dr. Beatrice, for organizing this event. Really, really important. Let's go back to the 4 main types of abuse. Neglect. What is neglect? May include inadequate healthcare, education, supervision, protection. That is the most common form of abuse, the neglect. And when we say neglect, that is actually given to them like there's no excuse. You neglect your responsibility as a parent. My father is the victim of this neglect, because he was not sent to school. He wants to go to college. He never did. And what's the effect to my father? He became alcoholic. And what is the effect of being alcoholic? I'm not ashamed to share to all of you, my father beat my mother. That leads to their separation. At early age of 5 years old, my parents separated. See, that is only one main type of abuse, neglect. My grandmother neglected her responsibility to his son, to my father, her son, and the effect. My father became depressed, frustrated, and became alcoholic, and he lost his family. But I have no ill feelings to my father because I understand him. And that is what we should do, all of us. We need to understand everyone. The second main part, physical abuse. Okay. That includes beating, kicking, all form of physical. In Alberta, my province here in Canada, this is now a new mandate. All patients, before they will admitted to check up, they will ask this question: are you being abused in your home? I don't know in India, in Greece, in Brazil, in Iran, in Georgia, if they're asking the same in the hospital, but this is now a new mandate. Regardless of age, they ask everyone, are you a victim of abuse in your house? Now let's go to the third main type of abuse, and that is still psychological abuse. That includes verbal abuse, humiliation, and an act of scaring your children. And probably that's the reason why my father became alcoholic, because of that psychological effect. Let's go to for me, it's not an acceptable form of abuse, and that is sexual abuse. All over the world, we have heard the news: grandfather raped his granddaughter, father raped his daughter. That is an animalistic behavior that we should address to. But of course, sexual abuse doesn't involve only anal, oral, or the penetration. It also involves any treatment that it's not well taken, or there's no approval from the minor. Particularly, they are minors. So you see, if we do this form of abuse, you don't know the effect. That's why I'm calling everyone here. I hope there will be more events like this in different parts of the world, and we will invite all speakers, leaders, doctors, educators to speak about this topic. I will end my talk because I believe I'm now 10 minutes talk, and it's already mentioned by 2 doctors from India and Iran. They talk about their studies about this topic. Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Dr. Rania, for recommending my name here to the Dr. Patrice. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to listen to you, Dr. Tendok. And what we see is that abuse, child abuse, is around the world. No social level, no intellectual level, no. It is everywhere. It's surrounding us every time. And just a better way to see something, not a proper way to see, is abuse. We can abuse with the eyes, we can abuse with hands, we can abuse with words, we can abuse in general. And it's so deep. As Dr. Lampour talked, as Professor Rejani talked, Dr. Obid at the beginning, Dr. Hamesh, and Dr. Tendok, we are treating with a great ghost that create a evil that is spread at any corner. It is serious, the problem is serious, and it is around the world. Well, I invite Dr. Lampour to start the talk. We have 20 minutes to a discussion now. And I think that the best way to do that is keep free to talk. I can't, it is not necessary that I say, you speak, you speak, you speak, not to stop the talk. Including the participation of Dr. Muhammad, for a long time is with his hand raised. Yeah, so 10 first minutes, let's listen to our invited speakers, and then we open the talk to people in general. Dr. Lampour, could you please?
Do you want me to start questions?
Yeah.
You start questions or declarations.
Okay.
It is a talk now, yeah?
Yeah, I see. When after listening all these interesting presentations, some very you know, I got emotional because we can see that in every house and in every family, there is a case of abuse, even if this is physical or emotional or sexual, etc. Unfortunately, sexual abuses, as Von Eric has mentioned, is becoming more and more frequent in families and households, and among also members of the same family, as he mentioned, parents, daughters, etc. So it's even more terrible. So I think that, as I mentioned before, the key is prevention. How we could prevent all these behaviors, what we can do on a level of education, on a level of healthcare, on a level of institutions, why institutions, criminal institutions should be more severe, because for instance, here in Greece, we have very, very, you know, all criminals are out, they do not go in jail. We have not strong institutions here in Greece. So if they're not strong institutions, it's certain that the perpetrator of a crime will do it again and again. So it's a thing that is a cycle, this cycle of violence that must break, and we need the support of all of our communities. As I mentioned before, it's interesting, for instance, for parents to reach out to communities, to reach out to neighborhoods, to other children, to get support, to learn about how to handle these situations. Very important for children to learn how to speak out, because I had this personal experience and I never spoke out. I think that maybe it was a mistake, but I should have mentioned it. And on the case of psychotherapy, we need expert sessions, especially when we talk about domestic violence, which has increased during the COVID pandemic. We have many, many serious cases. And we should focus, as I said before, on cyber crimes, cyberbullying, because online cases now during the COVID pandemic have become a plague. Parents don't know how to control all this case or all this phenomena of children, how they are exposed to inappropriate data, how they are exposed to inappropriate behaviors and all these insults. And for instance, here in Greece, we had in my school, a school where we were taught, I visited the police station and they never helped me about what we can do. Even in this case, we reported cyber crimes with my students and they didn't help us. So that's why I said that we need strong institutions. Without strong institutions, we cannot progress. As I said before, we need also to focus on special target groups, such as women, migrants. As before, here in Greece, we have many refugees and children of migrants, and they are suffering. You know, they live in slums, in overcrowded places. They get victims of drug abuse, of slavery, etc. We have many, many cases. There are the women, as I said before, women with disabilities, many vulnerable groups that need more attention than others. And of course, the case of gender-based violence that I mentioned, this is also another case. What I'm trying to do is for education. I have launched some educational programs in Africa and Asia. In Nigeria, for instance, there are high rates of Nigeria there. They have launched a program started being implemented in public schools, and it combines STEM education with gender-based violence awareness in order to strengthen the idea of peace among these students. It's interesting to say that I started to work with peace organizations in Nigeria, with some women there, some girls, and you know, the next day, one of these girls was dead. So this actually case incited me to write this program and started implement it in Nigeria. This is about gender-based violence. And also here in Greece this summer, we had many cases of femicides and girls and crimes over girls. This because of lockdowns, and of course, and the impossibility of all these children to report this because they were trapped in their own homes. They lack of accurate information. They can't consult helplines. It's very, very important to support, to consult helplines. This is sometimes very helpful, but it's not easy for someone who is afraid, who is confused, who is panicked, and has all these symptoms and all these consequences. And as I said before, and someone who has been abused, unfortunately, will be perpetrator when he become adults. This is what statistics say. So this is why we need special treatment in order to prevent this behavior for adults. And as I said before, parents need to see the signs, all the signs that we have mentioned. If they are unexplained physical injuries, or they are any emotional abuse, self-confidence, or loss of self-confidence or self-esteem, any kind of neglect or ignorance about school attendance and school performance, and of course, parents who seem not appropriate in their role. In this case, we need also to support them and offer them help from experts. So this is what I think, and I hope that this would get better if we're not afraid, and if we get support that's from experts. That's something that I didn't do when I had to do it. And we need also our friends to talk with. We need our family. We need support. This is important.
So sad. Well, thank you. Dr. Mohammed, would you like to aid your contribution?
Yeah. For me, my question.
Dr. Ahmed, Professor Dr. Mohammed is raising his hand. Yeah. I am asking him if he would like to talk now. Maybe no.
No.
دكتور محمد اتفضل. دكتور محمد.
Please. Yes.
اتفضل.
Yes, Dr. Omid.
Yeah.
That just in the name of God once more. Just I was telling Dr. Mohammed in Arabic. Just you can go ahead. Just.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Would you like to talk, Dr. Omid?
Yeah.
Dr. Mohammed do not speak, so
okay. In the name of God once more. Sorry, my name is Hossein Omidi.
Hossein Omidi. No Omid.
Hossein means handsome. Omidi means hopeful. So
okay. Sorry for that. Hossein Omidi.
Yes, Hossein Omidi. And really, there was something regarding introducing me just I think that most of the important things were neglected. Was it child abuse or what? Because I have something else. So when you introduced me, you said many things, which was what you it goes back to 25 years ago when I was just 25 years old. So anyway, I think there was something wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dr. Hossein Omid, I have a question. Are you hearing to me, Dr. Hossein?
Yes, Acha.
Yeah.
Acha ji.
Yeah. I personally congratulate you for a brilliant session, keynote session regarding the undying wounds of child abuse. Please tell me, what are the preventive measures taken by your country for overcome this type of child abuse?
Sorry, I would like, so would you mind repeating, or just, I could not get you, sorry, I'm so sorry.
My question is, what are the preventive measures taken by your country
Okay,
to
yes,
overcome this
yes.
type of child abuse?
Yes. So really, I'm an English language and literature PhD. I work as a Deputy Director of Scientific and International Cooperation and Communication in the Farangyan Teacher Education University in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I did my PhD in 2015 in BHU, Banaras Hindu University in India. And my, let's say, the title was The Wounded Psyche, a study in the poetry of Sikh Sassoon and Wilfred Owen. Then I published 8 books and 50 articles, and mostly my, let's say, I'm a literary critic and writer, and I can speak 5 languages. So, and I've worked, let's say, in many national and international organizations, such as the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, Islamic Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and the Iranian Ministry of Education and Farhangyan Teacher Education University. So I spent a few years in India, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Hossein, for your brilliant answer. Over to Mrs. Professor Raina Lampu, because you are the plenary speaker. This plenary speaker, your talk is a very nice talk, and you are welcome to this platform. My question is, this is as a female, what is your opinion regarding how to overcome this type of heinous activities from the society? Over to Aranya.
Yes, it's what I talked before about the gender-based violence, something that I'm trying to fight for. Trying to fight for the equality between women and men. First of all, from my position as an educator, I said that I'm organizing. Yes, I'm organizing, first of all, and students many women radio shows about women scientists in order to encourage my women to not to be afraid to be involved in STEM fields. So we organized many radio shows which were aired on European School Radio, many educational videos. And in the second part, I told you that I have organized many international projects that are implemented in Africa, especially Nigeria. And there I have integrated activities such as neurobiology of fear. It's very interesting for students there. You know, it is addressed to students to 11 to 14 years old, because after these students have already formed dysfunctional behavior. So I tried to target primary school students in order to influence somehow their behavior. So I integrated activities talking about neurobiology of fear to see what happens in our brain when we get abused. What are the hormones that we release? What are the neurotransmitters that we release? What happens there? So in this case, when they learn what our brain happens, what our body happens, these kids will not be abusers. This was my activity. And of course, I have integrated activities such as sociology, psychology, to see the facts, to see the statistics, what happens, why Nigeria is the first with the very high rates. Apart from this, I've combined this with arts because I think that arts are very liberating for children and very liberating, cathartic for everyone who who is subjected from violence. So what I'm trying to do this is as an educator. Apart from this, I'm a president of many women organizations. I'm collaborating with Australia, with UK, and we're trying to deliver many lectures about women's empowerment, women's rights, and women entrepreneurship. And this is what I'm trying to do from my end. But of course, we need a lot to do more, especially about cases of abuse, especially sexual abuse for women, girls. And this needs, of course, collaboration with institutions, said before, and experts. Educators are all along cannot do many things.
Thank you, Dr. Raina, for an excellent answer. Over to Professor Dr. Mohammed Hossain. Professor, this is Mohammed Tahir, Dr. Tahir. Namaste. Dr. Mohammed Tahir ji, Johar ji, are you hearing to me? Dr. Mohammed Tahir ji, have any opinion, have any question? Over to Dr. Beatrice. I asked this is what is your opinion regarding this theme? This theme is very interesting and sensitive theme nowadays.
Yeah.
Dr. Beatrice.
The theme is so interesting. Yes. The theme is so interesting, and we have to thanks. Yes, Dr. Hossain Omidi.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody once more, but I myself didn't want to talk about my personal experience, but I will see it from this point of view, because what I'm talking about now is very important, and it can happen to every country, to every nation. The war. Don't forget that war is one of the most important, let's say factors or causes of child abuse in general. I will just mention the 8 years war between Iraq and Iran. You know, millions of people were influenced by the war. And, you know, when the adults are, let's say, abused, so how can they themselves protect the kids? So we need to focus on that, to put our focus on that. And whenever there is a war, of course, there will be child abuse. So I'd like you to focus on that too. This is one point, because I myself, I lived in such kind of environment during that war in 1980 to 1988 in the Middle East. So I just would like everybody to, let's say, to share this and to, let's say, acknowledge that war can be one of the major causes of child abuse to a community, the whole community. It's not just 5 cases in for example, one country. It will be hundreds of thousands of cases, abuse to adults, and let's say consequently to the children, because they themselves, they cannot, a woman cannot protect herself. How to protect her children? A man cannot protect himself. So how can, let's say, can we, let's say, expect him to not to neglect the children? And major things, security, safety, hygiene, and the, let's say, major elements of let's say, a normal life will be missed. So little on the psychological and the emotional parts, let's say, which will be, of course, neglected. This is one thing. And if you give me a few minutes, I'd like to read a few sentences. You know, in general, even before birth, children's rights are respected in general in Abrahamic religions, especially Islam and Christianity as well, and Judaism and other religions. Children's rights are not guaranteed by the actions of their parents, their communities, or even their governments. God the Almighty himself guarantees children's rights. In Islam, children's right to live in a secure society and security itself is very important. To make it more clear, the rights of a child begin before birth and even before conception. In Islam, a man and a woman should not marry haphazardly. They both must dedicate their lives to worshiping and pleasing Allah and obeying Him. This would guarantee the rights of children automatically. Indeed, religious and legal marriage secures the rights of the couple's future children. In fact, among the basic rights of the child is to know his or her parents or lineage. According to the Holy Quran, and I will conclude, kill not your children because of poverty. We provide sustenance for you and for them. After a kid is conceived, it has the right to the sacred life, even if the parents fear poverty, for it is Allah, God, who is the provider and sustainer of all life. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Omidi.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Mona Lisa, Dr. Mona Lisa, are you hearing to me? Please introduce yourself, Mona Lisa. She is my research scholar. Mona Lisa, are you hearing to me? Mona Lisa? Mona Lisa Patnaik, are you hearing to me? Okay. Over to hosts. Dr. Aslani, ma'am.
Thank you, everybody. Dr. Beatriz, José Salvador Bisotto, would you like to talk something? No.
No.
I know. What
No.
we have, yes. Okay.
É.
So, it is a so severe theme. It is a so severe issue. And we have discussed here the theory of the abuse. We know what happened. We know the statistics are so more impressive that we have published around in so many countries and so many institutions. The question is, what we gonna do with this? How can we help these kids to survive in a healthy, in a natural, in a legal conditions for a happy life? What can we do that? Yeah, it's a great question. It's the question we have to do, because it is going on and on and on. Never stop. What we can do, in fact, how can we educate the people not to abuse the others, adults and kids? That's the question. And we have to do something. Anyone in his spare box? Well, second, Professora Rejane Bergamaschi is the editor-chief of Flor de Maçã Journal, a beginning journal, a baby one, but it will be a very strong one. The link to the journal is at the chat, and she is inviting you to publish, or your students, and invite your students, your teams, to publish at Flor de Maçã. Yes, Beatriz Bisotto also has a journal. Same invitation she is doing to you. We are going to share the links to the magazines, to the journals, to publish. You and your students, everybody is invited to publish. We appreciate the presence between us, among us, of Professora Maria Emilia Camargo. Nice to have you here, Professora Maria Emilia. And finally, we are getting the end of the event. We have so impressive statistics. We have so important teams treated here. The 4 columns that Dr. Von Erck brings, Dr. Omid, Dr. Hamesh, Dr. Lampur, and Dr. Hossein Omidi, Hania Lampur, Hamesh Chandra Hap, Rejane Bergamasque, and Von Erck Tender. You are so impressive. BLS Bisotto, Incorporations Educations, Innovations in Education is, on behalf of Beatriz Lucia Bisotto, I am greeting and thank you everyone here. Certificates will be soon, probably next week with you, yes, and especially now would like to thank you, Beatriz, my friend, my soul, to be here, to the possibility to contribute with this, and hope that Rejane Graneto gets soon better. Yeah. Thank you to you. Thank you to everyone. See you next event. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.